Okay, so today I'm going to talk about what the next steps are for completing the book, or not completing, but for making the covers for the book, and making headbands for the book, and then creating a template for the covers, which you'll understand after I explain it. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of run through all of that. A piece of board, and first thing I do is mark the grain direction. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut a strip out of this. The length, the height of it is going to be the height of my text block plus 3 board thicknesses. So I'm going to take my text block and put it right on the corner and make a mark. And then I'm going to take my 3 board thickness template and add that to the height of my text block. Then I'm going to cut that strip out. And you want to make sure that this is a square cut, that it's the same from top to bottom. So again, what I do is I line it up so that it's on a horizontal line and it's on a vertical line. And I've got to make sure that I'm holding it really firmly. Pull the blade a little this way. Double check. Okay, so now I have a straight cut all the way around again. So my grain right now is grain short. Okay, so the grain is running in that direction. And now what I want is I want 2 boards that are the same width as my text block. And if there's some variation in your signatures, some come out further than others, go for the widest one. Do you know what I mean by that? Okay. Okay, so that's going to be the same width. So again, I've cut a strip, grain short. It's the height of my text block plus 3 board thicknesses. And I'm going to cut pieces that are the same width as my text block. Okay. Also, I want a spine piece that I'm going to cut out of the same strip, so it's going to be the same height as my cover boards. And I'm going to go the other end and measure that. So, against the spine. So I mark that, and I add 1 board thickness to that. So the spine will be the thickness of the spine, or the width of the spine of the text block, plus 1 board thickness. Okay. And I'm doing it at the other end so that I have all of this to hold on to, because it's really hard to cut a narrow piece straight and hold it like that. So yeah, so this is what I do first. And then I can square it up easily. Okay, and again, I line up on the horizontal line and the vertical line. Cut that. So that again is the height of my text block plus 3 board thicknesses. And then I can cut my covers. So the same width as the text block. Double check, horizontal, vertical spaces. Now I can double check that, so same width as my text block, and then I just need to cut 1 more. Okay, check that, make sure they're both exactly the same. And this one actually needs to be shaved off a little bit. So they're exactly the same. Notice that they're all the same height. That's really important. Sometimes students get confused, and somehow this ends up longer or shorter than these. So if you're cutting them all out of the same strip, they'll automatically all be the same height. And so those are the cover pieces. What you're going to do next, you're going to take a piece of paper and you're going to glue these down onto the paper. So what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to draw a straight line. Really it should be grain. So my grain on the paper is running in this direction, I can tell. That's less good there. So I'm going to, when I glue this down, I'm going to glue it in the same direction as I want the paper grain to be the same as the board grain. Okay, so figure out what your grain is. Then you have these marks, and you have these marks, and you can just glue it down. And just make sure I didn't sell myself short there. Okay. And I'm going to draw a straight line, just to keep them all lined up with each other. And I'm going to glue those down.
Jim, will you put the blade down so I can see it?
This brush has seen better days. Put that down. Doesn't matter the distance, I just want to keep it all on a straight line. Because I'm actually going to cut this out right to the edge of the board. You'll see what I mean. And burnish that. And now I want to take my 3 board thickness template, and I want a 3 board thickness joint between the spine and the boards. Okay, so now I'm going to take my spine piece. So, you know, this is exactly the same as the square back case binding. In fact, this is a square back case binding. So all the measurements are the same, except it's just on a smaller scale. And I want to make sure that these stay straight in line. 3 board thicknesses. Finish that. Would you close that door, please? And then I need to measure 3 board thicknesses again. So if you're gluing these down and you see that your spine and your boards aren't the same height, it means that you turned your front and back boards around. So just make sure the grain is parallel with the spine all the way. Okay, and burnish that. So the height of the book, the text block plus 3 board thicknesses, the same width as the text block. This is the width of the spine plus 1 board thickness. So those are the dimensions, and I'll set that aside. Now you'll have some board left from that strip that you cut, and you can cut it down or you can just use it as it is because it's going to end up being scrap. And about a 1/2 inch down on each side. Don't put your fingers underneath. I'm making about a 1/4 inch cut, 1/4 inch deep cut. And I'm going to take some thread, which I'll hand out. And my book's not going to be, you know, I won't need a very thick headband, right? Not too much width. So I'm just going to make it wide enough to fit on here. And since it's a smaller book, we're going to make a smaller headband. So rather than 4 thicknesses, it's going to be 2 thicknesses. So I'm going to take my thread and slit that I just made. And pull it so the knot is against that. And then the same thing, I'm going to twist it until it makes a cord. I don't want to, sometimes I'll even twist it until it starts to bunch up on itself. And then I know, and then when I stretch it, I have a nice two-ply cord. Okay. So then I take, you're going to choose the color of your paste paper, you're going to use paste paper for the headbands only. And I'm cutting it just wide enough so that it fits in there. And I'm going to kind of curl it a little bit and glue this up. Can you see okay, Addison?
Yep.
No, you can't see, right? Slide that under and pull it over. And I want the paste paper right against that thread and take my bone folder or my fingernail, except I just trimmed them so I don't really have one right now, and get them right against that thread. So I'm going to take your bone folder and just, with the flat side, just set it right against the thread so that you have that, same way you have that cord running through the paste paper with the little lip. Okay, and so that's the headbands. I'll just set that aside for now. Pull this down. May I use your cutting mat?
Yeah.
All right, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and I'm going to take my X-Acto and I'm going to cut this out right to the board. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a template for the cover, because the cover is going to be, you're going to have a 3/4 inch square all the way around when we glue the cover down. And the cover is going to be all one piece. It's not, there's not going to be cloth on the spine, it's just going to be one piece. So I'm going to set this down and kind of in the center, and I'm going to take my pencil and at each joint, so the corner, I guess each corner of my spine, the corner of my spine, corner of my book, corner of my cover rather, corner of my cover, corner of my cover, corner of my spine, corner of my spine, corner of my cover, corner of my cover. And so now I have all the marks that are going to be right on the cover of the book. I'm going to lightly draw those out. And as I said, all we're doing right now is making a template for the size of the cover so that we know what area is the front cover, what area is the back cover. And so when we put our design on to the cover paper, we know exactly what's what. So what I've drawn out now is what my covers are, right? You see that? Got that? All right, so then what I want a 3/4 inch square all the way around, right? So I'm going to, remember I made these 3/4 inches wide, so that's perfect. Just gonna, So the whole cover piece will be the outside dimension. You're gonna know that your covers are gonna be inside, or what people are gonna see are gonna be inside of these squares. You're gonna know that the spine is there in case you want to put something on the spine. I don't know if you do or not. You know, like a little, I don't know, gold stripe or whatever, if you want it, or you want something from the front cover to bleed onto the back cover. So, just let me think about this. So the front of the book is going to be on the right-hand side. So when you make your cover, it's going to be on the front. So you can label the front, back to back. So now when you make your cover, you're going to be sure to make it that way. Okay? Okay. Are there any questions? Okay,
What
so
paper are we doing the cover with, if that's just a template?
that's up to you. You can do it on your textway paper, or you can do it on the watercolor paper.
Okay.
The watercolor paper doesn't fold as easily, but if you're using a watercolor or water-based medium, you might want to use the watercolor paper.
All right.
Although even this paper, you know, since you're gluing it down flat, if you're not soaking it so much that it pills, you know what I mean, pills,
Yeah.
sort of, then this paper might work. But either one is fine.
Okay.
Either one is fine. Just either this or, and if you're using colored pencil, you might want to use this just because it's a little easier to fold. But either this or the watercolor paper you have.
So we are putting a design on the front cover once the cover's already on, correct, or no?
No, you're going to get, this will be your cover, so it will already be all designed, everything will be on it.
Gotcha.
And then and then when you come back from break, you're gonna glue that on. Okay, so it will already have everything on it.
So we draw right on the template.
Well, if this is the paper you're using, you can, or you can use this template and transfer it to another piece of paper. But these are your measurements, you know that these are your measurements. So, yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay, that's it for, so, I'm gonna have a piece of board at each cutter, and we can all cut from the same board, so just make sure your cuts are straight. If your cuts aren't straight, it means the next person's cuts aren't gonna be straight. So what I suggest is that as soon as you follow somebody, the very first cut that you make, so I'm following somebody, and they've already cut some off, so this is kind of important. What I'm going to do, the very first thing I'm going to do is to take it and square it off there, so it's on the horizontal line, on the vertical line. Holding it down, I'm going to trim it there as well. And now I know that that's a square corner. If you want to double check, just take your L square and double check that it is square. And then you can make the cut. Okay? Are there any questions? All right, great.